Hi everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Music Rambles with Josh. Our topic today comes from our friend Peyton. Peyton says, I really want to learn how to play the guitar this summer. I wanted to learn for a long time, and even got some beginner books, but I have no idea where to begin. Could you maybe do a crash course on how to play the guitar? And if you know how to, thanks. Well, Peyton, as it turns out, I do not know how to play the guitar. This is a very large ukulele. But in learning how to play those instruments, I've actually learned a little bit along the way on how to teach yourself a musical instrument. So hopefully I can pass along some of that expertise, some of those tips and tricks on teaching yourself to play music to you guys. So in this episode, we're going to focus on how to teach yourself how to play a fretted instrument that is lying around your house, whether that is a ukulele, a guitar, a mandolin, a banjo. Who knows what else? I don't, but I would love to hear. So, a little bit of background myself. So I started learning the ukulele back in 2016 because there was one lying around my house. Not this one. It was a purple one that my older sister received as a gift from an ex. So she wasn't using it, obviously, and so I figured, hey, may as well go to some use. I haven't done musical extracurriculars in a long time. And so I began to move down that process of teaching myself the instrument. And I'll move through the steps that I'm going to talk through today. And that ended up, being such a joy for me that I ended up buying my own ukulele during a visit to Copenhagen. This one right here, this is Park. And then eventually buying a larger one for that bigger sound a few years later. This one is Eleanor. And so, what were those steps? What did I do? Well, the first thing I did, and the first thing that you guys need to do, is getting familiar with your instrument. And I mean this both in terms of the literal instrument that is in front of you and also what this type of instrument is supposed to do and how you're supposed to play it. This will require you to look up some resources on the internet. So for example, with this ukulele here, we need to know how to tune it, how to hold it. The tuning is really important because especially if this is an instrument that's just been sitting around your house for a long time, it may not be properly tuned. It may have gone out of tune. So you need to figure out what these strings are supposed to sound like, and you also need to figure out how to tune them. For me, because my original instrument was the cello, I got really anxious around touching these pegs because as a string instrument player, you're never supposed to touch the pegs. But these strings are actually pretty hardy. Not only can you adjust these pegs, and it takes a bit of effort to actually change the pitch, but beyond that, these things can actually, you can replace the strings on these really easily. And you can detune them and retune them. For example, if you're going on an airplane, you'd need to loosen them. And you can do that, and the instrument probably won't be harmed. They're pretty plucky guys. So, get to know your instrument, figure out how to tune it properly. Once you know what note they're supposed to be tuned to, you can use whatever resources at your disposal. For you lucky ones that have perfect pitch, you're good to go. For the rest of us mortals, you can use an app on your phone. The one that I have here is called, what is it called? It is not evident based on what is currently up on my phone. It is called Sound Corset. It's available on Android, definitely. Maybe also iOS. I didn't check. But yeah, you can use this as a tuner, also as a metronome, which can also come in handy during musical practices. The other thing that you're going to need to look up extra resources on is the posture, stance, and technique that you're going to use to hold and play your instrument. It's important that you look this up early and that you get it down early, because if you develop bad habits early on, then those will end up being fossilized and much harder to break those habits after you've been playing for a month, a year, a few years. So, for example, with the ukulele, you want to make sure you're holding it into place along your leg, that it's not against you, so that the sound can escape from all parts of the instrument. You also strum the strings by moving your finger across all of them at the same time. So like this, I'm not holding it great because I need you to see where the whole thing, but like, okay, I'll assume that, okay. You know what, this is visible enough, so yeah, like this. That was a little hard. Like that. Quick break. Pardon me. All right. The only other equipment that I would recommend that you get before beginning your musical journey is a capo. A capo is a tool that allows you to adjust what key you're playing the instrument in. So, for example, the chord that I was just playing is called the C major chord. And obviously, this is a C, and then it plays all those notes that are in the key of C. However, if I want to play in the key of D, rather than playing a whole new set of chords, what I can actually do is I can actually put this on the second fret up, which adjusts the key by 2 semitones from C to C sharp to D. And then, once it's on there, I can use the same fingerings in order to play in the key of D. You gotta be careful when you're playing with a capo that you can still get those good fingerings in. So, this is gonna come in handy, especially when you need to play in keys that are a little more unwieldy, and we'll talk about that later. So this is one example of what a capo might look like. This one you fasten and loosen through a screwing mechanism. You can also find other ones that use different mechanisms. This one is kind of a grabby, which is I use for my bigger instruments. So, you have all the equipment, you know how to hold it, you know theoretically how to play it. What's next? Next up, there's some resources that you're going to want to find. And I'll share with you the ones that I found most useful when I was assembling my own little resource book, my little song book right here. And you can tell how well loved they are because these front pages are absolutely wrecked. So, the resource that I'm going to recommend first are chord charts, which are basically little diagrams that show you where to place your fingers in order to play different chords. Now, this is very intimidating. This is a lot of different chords. In reality, you're going to probably be using about a third of them total, and then maybe about half of those most of the time. Really, most of the time, you're relying on a very specific set of chords. When you get these chord charts, good to have all of them on your disposal, because you never know when you're going to want to jazz things up with a major 7. But what you really want to look out for are 6 chords in particular to start with. You're going to want your C, you're going to want your G, you're going to want your D minor, you're going to want your A minor, you're going to want your E minor, you're going to want your B minor, and you're going to want your F. And if you know anything about chord theory, which, don't worry, I didn't when I started learning the ukulele, then you'll know that those are the chords that make up most of the C major chord progression, which means that if you're playing almost any song in the key of C, most of the chords in that song are probably going to be somewhere within those 6. And so, if you can identify those chords early on, those are the great ones to practice at first, because learning those chords is what's going to allow you to play anything. Because, as we discussed earlier, through the magic of capos, even if it's not originally on the chord of C, you can change it to the chord of C. Although we'll talk about when it's appropriate to transpose. So, we have our chord chart. Another resource that's going to come very handy, and you'll be familiar with if you took grade 9 music, is the circle of fifths. This is a visualization of how different notes are related to each other. So for example, the C right here and the note G are separated by a fifth interval. Then the G and the D are separated by a fifth, D and A are separated by a fifth, so on and so forth, all the way around the circle. And if you go backwards, then they're separated by fourths. So C to F is a fourth up, or a fifth down, and so on, all the way around back. And the reason why this is important gets into some more complicated stuff. So I'm going to tell you, but if you don't fully understand, then that's okay. We can, if you guys want more music theory type videos in the future, I'm happy to supply. But basically the idea is that you'll notice that, and this one in particular, they're actually labeled here so that if you're playing the key of C, then the C chord is the 1, and then the G chord is the dominant chord, or the 5th, or rather the 5 chord. So tonic 1, dominant 5th. But if you're playing, say, in the chord of A, then that same geometric relationship applies. So the chord that's immediately clockwise from that A, the E, is now the dominant, whereas the chord in the other direction is the 4. So, basically what this allows you to do then is to use as a transposing tool. So if you want to change what key a song is played in, you can say, for example, oh look, I have a song that's in the key of G, I want to play in the key of C, so I just need to move all of the chords over one step in this direction. So, that's why a circle of fifths is good to have handy. And those are the resources you want to have. But there's actually one more resource that's going to be useful, or rather one more kind of resource, which is the actual music that you want to be playing. And this really is the big takeaway that I wanted to have from this video, if you remember nothing else, which is that the best way to learn how to play an instrument is to find the songs that you want to play and work backwards from that. So, for example, when I was first playing the ukulele, I was a big fan, and remain a big fan, of this television show called Steven Universe. And Steven Universe actually has a lot of music that was originally composed on the ukulele, so it has a lot of chord selections available online. So I found those selections and then worked from there in order to learn how to play those songs that I already loved and knew so well. So for example, the perennial favorite, Let Me Drive My Van Into Your Heart. So you can see, sometimes they'll even include the chord charts at the top of the selection, which is even better, because then what that means is that if there's anything that you don't know, you can figure that out. So for example, I'm playing, oh yeah, we got the F, we got the G7, we got the C, I'm good. And then I get here, and it's like, oh, there's a B flat. I haven't played this one before. How do I do this? Oh, look, there's a chart up here. I glossed over this earlier when we were actually looking at the chord chart. So basically how you read these is that the number indicates what finger you use. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't use that clip out of context. And then the position on here indicates which strings you're going to play. So, for example, the C chord. You'll see that it's 0, 0, 0, so these are open, and then we have a 3, and then a dot in that third space on the furthest most line. So, if you look here, if we're holding it top down like this, we put the finger 1, 2, 3, we put that right here. Look at that, these three strings open. This one, the third finger, in the third spot. On the last one, play this. Boom, that's how you play a C. And so that's how you use those chord charts I mentioned earlier. So when you're looking at this and you're like, oh, I don't know how to play a B flat, you can either refer it here, or if it's not on here, you can refer back to those chord charts that I said that you should get earlier. And you can say, oh, look, you put the third finger here, second finger here, first finger spread across these two strings, and then that is how I play the B flat. And sure enough, 1, 2, 3, play that. That's a B flat chord. So, you're going to want to start off by finding those songs that you want to play, and at first, you're probably going to want to transpose a lot of them into the key of C. Some websites will even let you do this within the website. You can just click a little button, and it'll take it down a notch until eventually it reaches C. So that way, you'll be using those 6 chords you've already learned as a starting point, and then start to pick up other new chords along the way. However, there are going to be some nearby keys that are going to have most of those chords shared, but maybe a couple different. So maybe it'll be in the key of F, which has a lot of similar chords to C, although it has, for example, top of it has the B flat in there, and it has a G minor in there. So if you play a song that's in the key of F, then you'll have mostly similar, but you'll be able to learn those 2 chords. Or if it's in the key of G, then you'll have the A major chord and the D major chord, and still be able to learn those ones when you play those. So the idea being that over time, as you continue to look at more and more different songs that are in slightly different keys, you are going to be able to pick up these different chords along the way, and that's exactly what I did over the years, learning all sorts of new songs. And then sometimes they'd throw me a new chord, like a D minor 7, I'd look at it and be like, oh my goodness, D minor 7, how am I supposed to put my fingers like that? But I really want to play the song, and so I'd practice that fingering until eventually I get the D minor 7, one of my favorite chords. Life and death and love and birth and peace and war on the planet, etc. So, that is really the big takeaway. To seek out those songs that you really want to play. Whether that's campfire classics, like Riptide and Wagon Wheel and Country Roads, or Disney songs, or Ed Sheeran. Goodness knows how much Ed Sheeran I have in that book. But seek out the music that you want to play, because that's the music you're familiar with, so you're going to know how it's supposed to sound. And you're going to be happy listening to it over and over again, so that you can hear and play along with it, and that you can play it yourself and feel good about playing it. Because that's the beauty about self-teaching an instrument. You can take yourself in whatever direction you like and learn all those skills along the way. Now, eventually, if your trajectory is anything like mine, there will be a point of diminishing returns, where eventually you'll keep learning and you'll reach that sort of skill ceiling where you've learned everything that you're able to learn by yourself, and despite your best attempts, those other chords that you don't play as often are still a little bit out of reach, and there are other skills that maybe you haven't dealt with yet. When you reach that point, honestly, if you're interested in advancing any further, the best advice that I can give you is at that point to go ahead and find a music teacher. And there's so many different options to find music teachers. Obviously, we have the internet and all the resources that come with it. But also, soon, many of you guys will be at universities, and those universities might have music departments with music students that are eager to get experience teaching music, because that's what a lot of them are going to be doing, either part-time or full-time, after they graduate. And so they'll probably really appreciate having the experience of teaching somebody, and you'll probably be able to pay for those lessons at a fraction of the cost that you would normally pay a professional music teacher. And of course, like I mentioned, there are online resources that can give you some really helpful and useful advice, but there's nothing quite like that one-on-one connection with a teacher to guide you to understand where your current level is at, what pitfalls you need to correct, and what next steps you need to take. Honestly, that mentor relationship is one that's really valuable to have in life, no matter what subject or skill we're talking about. And so hopefully, even though I'm talking really broadly to you guys, a very large audience, hopefully that advice will give you the first steps to take your own musical journey with whatever instrument that you happen to have in your house. I've been rambling for upwards of 16 minutes, so I'm going to give you guys, your ears, and my vocal cords a rest for a little bit. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Music Rambles with Josh. Thank you so much to Peyton for submitting a question. If you have a topic that you'd like me to cover in a future Music Ramble, I would be delighted to talk about it. And that, my friends, is Music Rambles with Josh.